Hey, and we're live. All right. So, for those of you who are listening already, thank you for joining me. And so, we're going to talk about a few things today. So, let's go ahead and let's get her started because we got a bunch of things to go over. Okay. So, first things first, want to kind of give an update about the Catch Wrestling Academy. So, CWA Academy. Um, you can go through all. So basically, this is for people who are serious about learning and even teaching and kind of becoming an affiliated school with the Catch Wrestling Alliance. So we have that program online because we know that people all around the world want to be learning the most authentic catch wrestling. So we've set up that program for you, and you can easily access it through catchwrestlingalliance.com. Like just through our website, you can look up, just click on the tab that says CWA Academy. What I want to let you guys know about that, because we already have a bunch of people who are in there already. We want I want to add extra, basically an extra section for people who want to know more a little bit about coaching or even some other types of drills and stuff that are more sport specific and also catch wrestling specific. So I want to be adding a little bit, like another section for members. So that will be coming soon. So I already kind of working on it based on your feedback and stuff. So I want to let you know that it's something I already want to do. I already kind of had planned, but it's coming sooner than later, especially since you guys are already requesting it. So just know that the CWA Academy is very interactive. So we'll be in contact a lot. So feel free to like ask questions at any time because it's basically here to like support you, any of the students, but also to help everyone understand the the nature and the whole idea and the spirit of catch wrestling, authentic catches, catch can wrestling, or Lancashire wrestling, right? Okay, so that being said, oh, and also too, some people ask, like, say, what's kind of the difference between the Catch Wrestling or the CWA Academy and becoming a member of the YouTube channel? The YouTube channel members usually you get a lot more access to, say, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, or if I interview somebody, usually we'll do a few more minutes, and we'll put like something like either they show some technique or talk about something a little bit different. So we'll put extra stuff for the YouTube channel members, right? So the members of this channel can see that. We also do a lot of different technique stuff. Some stuff is in the CWA Academy stuff, but it's not as structured. So you'll still get some technique stuff, but I want to try to add a little bit more stuff from guests, like extra stuff, extra workout stuff, extra technique videos, tips, and stuff like that for the YouTube channel members. So consider becoming a channel member of this channel, and you can always find that link. You just click on the button below the video, right? It says join, right? So, okay, so moving on to the next thing, I want to give an update about our women's event. So I kind of had a suspicion because of the whole COVID thing. So we had some international people, European competitors who can't come right now because of the whole COVID situation. So um, we've, I think it's our government that's barred them from coming over and stuff. And then some have gotten injured, right? So Dez, who was supposed to be competing, uh, um, had a injury from a procedure, so not from training, as some surgery that she had. So she's recovering and she's okay, but she's not fit right now to compete. So the main competitors who remain will actually be someone that I didn't talk about, but so her name's Carolyn Clem, and so I want to try to uh, get an interview with her right away. And then the other one is Jolene Hex. So Jolene probably has a bigger, definitely has a bigger fan base because she's one of the champions in the LFC. Um, she just had a match in the LFC at their event in Sturgis. So that should be televised somewhat soon. They taped it and it's being delayed, but it will be aired on NBC Sports coming up soon. So She. Oh darn! Actually, okay. Sorry, sorry about that. I think I was not supposed to mention any outcomes because they haven't talked about outcomes yet. But since I'm involved with training a bunch of the competitors, I know a lot of the outcomes already. So nobody tell them that that I mentioned that. But anyway, so uh, Jolene's really aggressive and comes from a grappling background, has experience with the LFC, MMA rules and stuff like that. They have modified MMA rules, so you can't punch to the face while you're standing, but you can hit the head if you take them down. So it's just one of their rules. Um, so anyway, really aggressive, and then I'll try to get you guys some more information about Carolyn. You've definitely seen Carolyn on this channel, so she and I frequently do technique videos together. She's the curly hair blonde woman that you see, and so I want to try to do an interview with her so you guys get to know a little bit more about her. So she's really athletic. She's definitely a real athlete. So just want to try to get you guys to understand and know her a little bit more because she and Jolene are going to go at it not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. Okay, and then you will definitely be able to see that. That won't be delayed or anything like that. I'll see if we can just live stream it, or if not, basically the one drawback of live streaming is that sometimes you can't get the highest quality video. So I want to make sure that everything's really high quality. And then so that's what I was thinking. Maybe just making sure it's recorded really well, and then released almost instantly after it happens, because you can do that pretty quickly. So I'll think about it. Okay, so just so give you guys that update as well. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes, or the plant based meat and and potato. So I think we got to talk about this, right? The position over submission. So we just had a one of you guys asked about it, but it's something that comes up all the time. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The whole notion about jujitsu, their whole philosophy is position over submission, and then like catch wrestling is uh, with the opposite, right? So I think the whole notion comes from probably from jiu-jitsu, right? They're trying to say like, oh, what's the difference between us and them? I mean, the main difference is wrestling. So for catch wrestling in particular, since it's in its long history, so even before like the form that we know it now, the pin was the thing, right? So that's that's really position over everything, really. So position and pinning, right, over even submissions, right? So and so even so so in a way it's like you take that whole saying position over submission. How about position and no submission? That's kind of the way catch wrestling uh, what it came about, or at least that was kind of like the philosophy, where it's like it's really a pin heavy art, right? And so that's why you'll see it from the old British books, but then also you'll see it in like Farmer Burns writing, right? So, but there are, say, later on you'll see people like say a Farmer Burns lineage, where maybe they'll value the submission hold a little bit more, and also too with the people who are doing the carnivals, right? So the AT shows stuff like that happened a lot, not just in the United States, but I know a lot more about the United States situation. So that's why we have like the double wrist lock and stuff. So if someone who is competing in these AT shows, in the carnival shows, um, if if say like a young collegiate wrestler came up and wanted to challenge the champ, right? So they would pay and they would be allowed to compete. And so then if um, someone didn't know submissions, well then they might get pinned, right? They might lose to this collegiate wrestler. So they had to be using some of these locks to make sure that they can get a hold of the person. And so quite often you'll see, say, double wrist locks, and even what we call like a key lock and stuff like that. These are used for pinning people as well, right? So that's the thing. So sometimes, quite often, like someone comes at you, like to double leg you, right? You can lock up that double wrist lock as they come in, right? You throw them onto their back, right? So also too, if in a similar way, right? If they're kind of grabbing at you, you can lock up the key lock, and also again, so it's like you're really taking control of the one limb, and that destabilizes the opponent enough so that you can then pin them, right? So ultimately, I think catch wrestling is the one position over even submissions, right? So I think the whole idea about that is just some way for a lot of jiu-jitsu people to kind of differentiate that, or try to. I think a lot of times is used to kind of put down catch wrestling. Um, so it's just nonsense you'll hear. Just like I'd say, don't believe it or don't care about some of these things where it's like sometimes it's like the critic who doesn't quite understand your thing, right? Or doesn't understand your art. So, really take what they have to say with a grain of salt. Especially the more you know catch wrestling, the more you'll understand, and the more you'll see that like these other people are just kind of weird. Because also too in jiu-jitsu, what are you seeing? You're seeing some people jumping into techniques and this and that. So it's like a flying armbar that's definitely not position over submission. Like so. But hey, but then you'll see some jiu-jitsu person listening to this, and they're probably thinking like, "Oh man, like that's a position, right? That's like so who knows? It's weird. It's like people have different opinions on what things are. People will complain all the time about what a pin is, and they think pins are useless, even though that is catch wrestling. And so we have sometimes the submission happens, right? Or a lot of times you use a hold to get someone into the pinned right, position, right? So that position of being on your back is the catch wrestling way, really. So hopefully people understand that. So does anybody have any questions about that, or uh, anything you have to say? You guys just all hate catch wrestling now? Hey Robbie, good to see you. Let me see. Uh, hey Lacanophile. So I think it was your comment about that is what kind of sparked this talk today. So let me know if you have any other thoughts about that, or what you're seeing from other people. But see, the thing is, nowadays too in jiu-jitsu, even though they might say that whatever position over submission and stuff like that about jiu-jitsu, it's like, what are we seeing? We're seeing, especially in nogi, you're seeing a couple things, right? So you're seeing this big love and adoration and addition of leg locks to the nogi game. But then you're also seeing, say, like especially in ADCC, they talk about it a lot, where it's like, oh, it's the wrestler um, who's actually at the advantage, especially in nogi, right? So then you're seeing them trying to reintegrate wrestling into their style, especially their no gi style, right? Gi is a gi. I have to admit, I haven't done it too much or whatever, but I've done it enough. But the game is a little bit different because while you're wearing all those clothes, it just seems to, people can grab on to different parts of your clothing and stuff like that. So it's for me, it's not as fluid as like say nogi or catch wrestling. So there's those differences. So I think maybe that's why people aren't necessarily thinking that in the regular gi competition they're not thinking wrestling so much, because you can just hang on the clothes and try to do a lot of these different guards that you'll see like different people like making their DVDs about and stuff like that. Oh man, one of them is he's near here. He's in San Diego. I forgot he's Keenan Cornelius, right? So a lot of times people will talk about that, these different types of guards and stuff, and where a lot of it's just like hanging on the clothes, hanging on the jacket, wrapping it around legs and stuff like that. So, so you're not going to necessarily see uh, anybody able to do that in nogi, right? So then I think that's why people are kind of trying to incorporate wrestling more into the whole nogi game, which again should be an advantage to catch wrestling specifically. So, and why do I say that? It's because regular amateur wrestling doesn't have the situational awareness of the submissions, right? So, one of you guys shared with me a recent video where it was like Ben Askren with that young UFC fighter that he keeps on calling his son, which is not really his son. I forgot his name, but they did a pretty funny video where it's like that guy goes to his gym, and then he's rolling with the students, and he's not doing any kind of wrestling, but he's doing all these submissions off his back and all that, and talking about how easy wrestling is and stuff like that. But I think that kind of shows the drawback of amateur wrestling, that total lack of awareness of the submission. So that's why I say catch wrestling is like has a very unique advantage that you definitely want to learn, and so that you can take advantage of that advantage is the whole situational awareness of submissions, right? So catch wrestling has a tremendous advantage, right? And but then like look what you're seeing, especially it was in the big there's a big topic from ADCC where you have like this blue belt, and it wasn't even a Division One wrestler, um, Nikki Rod, that did so well. Um, so so that shows kind of like even the power of amateur wrestling. But then if you get uh, that situational awareness for submissions, then it becomes super dominant. So right now he's getting jiu-jitsu based training, which it's only going to help him more. But would love it if he got like the catch wrestling based training where he'll be doing a lot of he could have been doing a lot of these hammerlock stuff and stuff I'm using a lot against like my friends in at 10th Planet or whatever. So uh, sorry to to use these techniques on you, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like so people who've been competing a lot, higher level belts. I mean, you still catch them in a lot of these catch wrestling submissions, and but it's because it's not the usual way of doing things. So especially since they usually have like a say someone who's on top, belly down, and then the person on back is belly up, right? So a lot of times in catch wrestling, or you will force someone if they try to get away from you, you'll force them into a turtle position. Then you can be using a lot of these counters, different ways to roll people over and such. But we definitely have an advantage in that case too, right? So amateur wrestlers and catch wrestlers should have an advantage if you could force your opponent into turtle as well. So we should be able to get some of these hammerlock things going and stuff. So like even amateur wrestlers, they still kind of have like this whole hammerlock positioning, but because it is potentially dangerous, they can only bring the arm of their opponents behind their back only so far. So they don't really get used to all that, like finishing that submission. But they're still used to using like bar arms and stuff like that, so where you really get both of their arm, even one arm behind the back, but you do it in a what's like legal and amateur wrestling kind of way, and then usually you drive them over like basically over their own head to pin them, right? So all these things are really really excellent, really great. All right, so that is like kind of like the main advantage of catch wrestling, and so you definitely want to be taking advantage of that. You can totally jump into our Catch Wrestling Alliance Academy, through our website. Okay, so we have another question here from the Game Hunter Eli. All right, so what are some of the main issues you think some wrestlers have when it comes to MMA? Sometimes it is that um, that situational awareness for the submissions. So we've seen it a few times. One of them was like one of the recent ones, which is big, Ed Ruth. I always like to use him as an example, right? So definitely a really great NCAA, collegiate wrestler, super super good. Um, he's been doing so like what he, I think he did Nogi Worlds, so IBJJF Nogi Worlds last year. So that, for those of you guys who aren't sure or don't know IBJJF, I think it's kind of like what rock have you been living under? And I just get no. It's like if you're not into, say if you're into 10th Planet or these other things, you won't know too much about IBJJF, but they have a very strict rule set that you have to follow to compete, right? So um, So right now, I believe Ed Ruth is a purple belt. He did Nogi Worlds, and ultimately, Jiu-Jitsu does favor, at least the point system does favor wrestlers, but um, he still didn't win, right? So he definitely, like, without even knowing who else was in his division, like you don't have to know who else was in his division. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how famous these other people were. Ed Ruth should have been the best wrestler in that division. Like you don't even, like, no doubt, right? But he still lost, right? So or at least he didn't get the gold medal, right? And I believe he might have not medaled at all, right? So um, true that a lot of the times these divisions are pretty stacked, right? So yeah, so you might even get tired. It might just be fatiguing, right? I got pretty tired. I did one of the world competitions as well. There's a bunch of matches you have to do, and they pretty much make you do them back to back, right? So anyway, um, I think still catch wrestling can give you the advantage naturally, right? Because also Ed Ruth competes in Bellator, I believe. So that being said, again, it's like I think he got rear naked choked by one of the Gracies, um, and so you'll see stuff like that. You'll see, or even say like Tyrone Woodley, right? He is a black belt now in jiu-jitsu, and he was a Division 1 wrestler, but then he just got dominated by with Division 2 wrestler Usman. I think sometimes then there's that kind of situation where it's like you get this really great wrestler, and then maybe they try to incorporate a little too much from the jiu-jitsu. And what I mean by that is like they'll be like in the situation with Woodley versus Usman. Usman was able to get Woodley down, and Woodley was happy to stay like on his butt a lot of the time, right? And he wasn't trying to do any kind of wrestling way of escaping, right? He pretty much just stayed there, maybe tried to fight back a little bit, but ultimately allowed himself to stay pinned, and then subsequently he lost that fight. Um, so you'll see more of these examples, and so I do believe when you get someone a little bit more authentically trained in catch wrestling, they should have an advantage. At least that's what I'm always gonna say, right? Right? Just because I like this art so much. But I mean, truly, it's really one of these really cool arts where it's like if you have it as your base style, you can add a bunch of different things onto it. So whether it be some kind of striking art, some kind of self defense art, you should be like like skilled in, or you should have a good movement base where you can just easily add things onto it. The other style that I think is kind of like that is sanda, so Chinese kickboxing or wushu sanda. You're starting to see more wushu people or sanda people competing in UFC, also in one championship, doing really well and stuff because they have that kind of situational awareness and they can kind of transition from standing to takedowns and stuff like that. So these kind of styles I like a lot. Right, it keeps your brain flexible and stuff. So with that being said, you should have more of a wider perspective by doing the catch wrestling, since it does have pins and submissions um, over, like, say, even amateur wrestling, since the focus is points and pins, right? So catch wrestling, no points, right? And if you do a tournament where they call it catch wrestling, but they're adding points and stuff like that, it's not a catch wrestling tournament, guys. Also, to sometimes I've seen where people do a tournament where they call it catch wrestling, and then they add like they add a lot of time to the pins, right? For they call so the person who's getting pinned has a little bit more time to work off their back. That's not a catch wrestling tournament, guys. So I'll give you one example. There was a really famous world tournament. I think it was like 1912. It was called the Alhambra tournament. So it was in England, and because it was a world tournament, they had a lot of competitors. The earlier rounds, you would just win by like basically what we call like a flash pin. So if you got taken down and both of your shoulders touched, you're done. All right. So that was how they got through the early rounds, and then again they allotted more time, and like for like semifinals and finals and stuff like that. Once they've whittled down a lot of people, so um, you really can't be going on your back, and you shouldn't be allotted very much time uh, when you're on your back, and that is like more catch wrestling like, right? Is there any other questions? If not, I'll just ramble on. Let me see. I'll go ahead and check here. Yeah, those are some of my main issues, at least what I've seen. I mean, but ultimately, I mean, we can't deny the statistics where it's like wrestlers doing really well. People with strong wrestling backgrounds do really well in MMA overall. I would prefer if they had a really good catch wrestling background. But say like right now, I think kind of my personal opinion would be is like you see a lot of people claiming to be doing catch wrestling, but then they're doing this whole uh, person of 10,000 holds type thing where it's like show me your pinning your pinning strategies, right? That's really the real like part of catch wrestling that has to be not only preserved, but that has to be there for it to actually be catch wrestling. Because you'll see where it's like, sure, we can teach you like double wrist locks or neck cranks and or some kind of toe hold variation, but a lot of it is based off trying to pin somebody, right? So using these holds to get someone onto their back, throw them onto their back and such. Um, so you will see some people out there where it's like, oh, I'm a catch wrestler, and then uh, maybe they know all these kind of holds, and a lot of times it gets to the point where we call them show holds. So you might see that where that's the pro wrestling terminology, where it's like, yeah, you'll do these kind of fancy things, that would only be or that would only work against someone in like a pro wrestling match, right, and it wouldn't be considered real wrestling. So that'd be the other aspect about that. So you definitely have to be like pinning oriented or have a strong wrestling background, right? Okay, another question. When they hold tournaments, do they have room for amateur? Wait, do they have room for amateur or people that are relatively new to catch and the rule set? The last tournament that I did, the last Frank Gotch one that I did have a novice division. So we had like basically a novice and advanced because we did have a lot like a school coming in that had still young adults. They were adults, but they were maybe had only been training for a couple years or something. So we did a novice division there, and basically it depends on the amount of people. So if we have enough um, for a novice division, we could totally do that. I think I'll probably make it an option. Like, well, once the whole COVID thing ends, then we'll see who wants to be competing and stuff, and whoever signs up, and like I'll probably make that division available. But hopefully we don't hopefully we don't have everyone then signing up for the novice division, right? So um, yeah, because catch wrestling is relatively new for a lot of people, right? They haven't been they're just discovering it and kind of barely getting into it right now. Um, yeah, so yeah, we'll probably have that for you. Are there any so from Patrick M? Are there any questions allowed, or is there a specific topic? Okay, yeah, today we're talking about the whole submission over position thing, or position over submission thing, and I was saying that it was basically from a jujitsu perspective. I mean, it's probably their way of trying to describe the differences between themselves and catch wrestling. But I thought that whole way of framing the argument like just doesn't quite make sense because catch wrestling ultimately is a very pin heavy art. So uh, like we're all about that position, right? And so the submission sometimes will uh, will secure the submission hold, right, to throw someone onto their back. So it's not necessarily like what they think it is, right? So I think you could definitely just throw that whole argument out the window. That's just my opinion, right? I think it just kind of helps people who are outsiders to kind of understand a little bit from their frame of reference. So you're gonna hear all kinds of stuff. Right, over the more you learn about catch wrestling, I think the more you'll like it ultimately. Right. So with that being said, do you have any other? So from Randy, how long is a pin in catch? is it like high school where it's super short, or like judo where it's super long, right? So, um, in catch wrestling and for the Catch Wrestling Alliance events, it is a 2 second pin. All right, so you have 2 seconds to get off your back. Also, too, if you do one of those kind of like rolling, kind of almost like sacrifice throws, if they stop you or pause you like in that motion while you're still on your back, and even though say maybe you have like double wrist lock and you're gonna throw someone over, but they're able to kind of base out and you're still in the hold, but your shoulders are pinned and you get pinned there for 2 seconds and you're not able to complete the movement, you're pinned. You're pinned. We had a situation too in our event in Singapore where we had one guy who was trying to do that electric chair, the 10th planet sweep, where he ended up in half guard, and then he got the lockdown position, and then he tried to roll the guy over, but then the wrestler based out. The guy who was on top based out, and the guy wasn't able to complete his sweep. He was there for quite a few times, quite a long time, so quite a few seconds. All right, so he ended up being stuck, and so he got pinned. All right. Um, yeah, so it's relatively short, but don't think it's not necessarily like a flash pin where you just touch and you're done. You still have a chance to get out, but really at 2 seconds is plenty of time to get off your back. But again, you have to practice that. You have to practice. And that being said, maybe later on I'll put in the description box. I did make at least like a playlist of 4 videos where they have where I put at least 4 different techniques for getting off your back. I think that one is really good. So I'll try to link that in the description box. So let me see. From Patrick again, I've always been intrigued about catch wrestling. It seems like it was the back page Farmer Burns as or Sakuraba who seemed like a special case. Right. So do you mean like it was just like a couple people who were good or something like that? Um, uh, I don't think that's possible really, just based off of. But the thing is, it's like we did. I think it's like we just know less about it because it was so long ago. So these people aren't in the like the mainstream. But the thing is, say like people like Frank Gotch and stuff, they were well. Just think of it this way: it's like in the early 1900s, um, these like pro wrestling was so extremely popular, um, and so everyone knew about it. So this thing like Joe Stecker versus Earl Caddick that sold out Madison Square Garden. They were like Frank Gotch and Hackenschmidt. They were able to sell out the Kaminsky Park and the baseball stadium, right? So there were, and that was like over 30,000 people. I don't know how many people Madison Square Garden held at that time, but that was packed, right? So I think that's the main thing. And then you'll see where it's like where when professional wrestling shifted from catch wrestling to the performance style that it is today. Um, then that's when you kind of lose track of the legit guys, because a lot of times the legit guys, if they had something to fall back on, they didn't want to like continue with performances, right? So same thing right after that, the Caddick match that I mentioned, Earl Caddick and Joe Stecker, they were offered to then do a tour, right? So that they could like one guy would win in one city and the other guy would win in the other, and they'll make a lot of money. And they were both like, that's not us. We don't want to do anything like that. We only want to do the real thing. Earl, he had like a car, like an automotive, like garage and stuff in his hometown of Walnut, Iowa. He just went to work, right? Yeah, I think he already had the business set up, and so he's just like, I just won't do wrestling. So there are a bunch of people like that. Also, too, like Nat Pendleton. I mean, I'm sure people haven't heard about him, but his dream was to be like Frank Gotch, and he was really a very talented um, amateur wrestler. He won a bunch of different amateur like events and stuff, and like he was getting into pro catch wrestling, but again, then that was right around the time that conversion was happening. So he had other things he could do. He became an actor. He came out here to LA, did acting, did other things as well, because he wanted to do the real thing only. Let me see. Yeah, I'm glad you always root for the wrestlers. So let's continue producing some really great catch wrestlers. I think that's the one great thing about Catch Wrestling Alliance. The people we work with, we definitely produce really good quality athletes and competitors. So we're just going to continue to do that. I think the main thing is like we produce a lot of males, like a lot of guys who are good. I really want to see if we can't start producing more women. Right? So I think that's going to be the next goal. Right. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and cut it here, but continue asking questions and stuff. Let me know what you think, or let me know if there's any other catch wrestling related subjects that you'd like to find out about. Okay, thank you for watching.